Chapter 5, Silverback. Jack felt something tugging on his sleeve. He opened his eyes. Boo-Boo. The small gorilla was staring at him in the dawn light. Jack stood up. His arms and legs felt stiff and achy. His wet clothes stuck to his skin. He looked around the cloud forest. Misty sunlight shined through the tree branches. "Where's Annie?" he asked the small gorilla. Boo-Boo waved her arms. Then she bounded off between the trees. Jack pulled on his pack and followed. As the small gorilla led him through the cloud forest, her head bobbed above the leafy plants. Finally she stopped before a row of shrubs. Jack took a few steps forward and peered over the shrubs. "Oh, man," he whispered. Large, dark figures were sleeping in an open, grassy area. Gorillas. There were at least 10 of them. Some slept on their backs, some slept on their bellies. The gorillas were all sizes. The smallest was a baby sleeping in its mother's arms. The biggest was a giant with black and silver fur. Jack pulled the book out of his pack. He found a chapter on gorillas and read, "Mountain gorillas live together in families. The leader of the family is a large male called a silverback because he has silver fur on his back and shoulders. Gorillas do not hunt other animals. They mainly eat the plant growth of the forest. They are known to be shy and gentle giants." "Shy and gentle giants," Jack repeated. That sounded good. He peered over the shrubs again. Boo-Boo waved at him. She was standing at the far edge of the clearing. She pointed to something in the tall grass. Annie was fast asleep in the grass. Jack didn't know what to do. If he called her name, the gorillas would wake up. He had only one choice. He had to sneak over to her. Jack put his book in his pack. He pushed past the shrubs and stepped into the clearing. His heart was pounding. He thought of the words from the book, "Shy and gentle giants." As he started toward Annie, he heard a grunt. The giant gorilla with silver fur opened his eyes. When the gorilla saw Jack, he sat up. Jack stopped in his tracks. The gorilla just glared. This giant did not seem shy or gentle at all. Jack saw a stick lying on the ground. He picked it up just in case. Jack's stick made the gorilla growl. He stood up. He was very tall and very wide. Jack dropped his stick. Boo-Boo ran and hid behind a tree. The silverback growled again. His long, shaggy arms touched the ground. His fingers curled under. Walking on his knuckles, he stepped toward Jack. Jack stepped back. The gorilla stepped forward. Jack stepped back again. The gorilla kept stepping forward. Jack kept stepping back until he had stepped out of the clearing. But the silverback kept coming. Jack stumbled back through the brush until he came to a thick wall of plants. The gorilla kept coming. Jack couldn't move back anymore. Hi," he said nervously. He held up his hand. "I come in." Before Jack could say peace, the giant gorilla went crazy. He hooted and leaped to his feet. Jack crouched down in a panic. The gorilla kept hooting. He grabbed a tree limb. He shook it wildly. He ripped leaves from branches. He gnashed his teeth. He cupped his hands. He beat his chest. "Raw!" he roared. "Raw!" The gorilla dropped on all fours. He charged back and forth past Jack. Then he threw himself on his belly. He began bashing the ground with his palms. He bashed and bashed and bashed. Jack scrambled on his hands and knees over to a tree. He hid behind the trunk, hugging his head. He waited for the maniac gorilla to find him and tear him to pieces. Chapter 6. Good morning, gorillas. The pounding ended. There was silence, a long silence. Jack opened his eyes. He peeked around the tree. The silverback was sitting on the ground. His lips were curved in a smile. He looked pleased with himself. Was his whole act a fake? Jack wondered. Jack didn't know whether to be scared or to laugh. The only thing he did know was he still had to get to Annie. Jack pulled out the research book. He found the gorilla chapter again. He read, "To safely get close to gorillas in the wild, it's wise to act like a gorilla yourself. Crouch down and rest on your knuckles like a gorilla. Keep your head down and act friendly. Jack packed up his research book. He put his pack on his back, then he went down on his knees. Jack took a deep breath. He smiled a friendly smile. Pressing down on his knuckles, he moved out from behind the tree. His fingers hurt as he walked on them. The silverback grunted. Jack didn't look up. He kept smiling a friendly smile as he crawled through the brush toward the clearing. When he got to the edge of the clearing, he glanced back. The giant gorilla was following him. He was frowning, but he didn't seem about to attack. Jack kept going. He moved into the clearing, then he stopped. More gorillas were waking up. A large gorilla hugged Boo Boo as if to comfort her. When Boo Boo saw Jack, she screeched joyfully. All the other gorillas turned to look at him. They made nervous sounds. Jack's heart pounded, but he just smiled his friendly smile and kept crawling. He crawled around the gorillas and over to Annie. "Wake up," he said, shaking her. Annie yawned, then opened her eyes. "Oh, hi," she said. "Are you okay?" asked Jack. "Sure," she said. She sat up and looked around. She gasped. The gorillas were staring at Jack and Annie with bright, darting eyes. The silverback stared the hardest. "Oh, wow," said Annie. A joyful smile crossed her face. "Good morning, gorillas."
ㅅ매직트리하우스 Book 26 Good Morning Gorillas Chapter 5 and 6. Chapter 5 Silverback. Peer over. Jack took a few steps forward and peered over the shrubs. Sleep on one's back. Some slept on their backs. Sleep on one's belly. Some slept on their bellies. In one's tracks. Jack stopped in his tracks. Gnash one's teeth. He gnashed his teeth. Cup one's hands. He cupped his hands. Chapter 6 Good Morning, Gorillas. In a smile. His lips were curved in a smile. Pleased with. He looked pleased with himself. The only thing he did know was he still had to get to Annie. Go down on one's knees. Then he went down on his knees. Smile crossed one's face. A joyful smile crossed her face. Practice makes perfect.